Hello and welcome to the Undressing the Spirit podcast, where sex and spirit go hand in hand. Join me, Tamara Powell, on a no-holds-barred adventure into the psyche and beyond every conceivable limit. Welcome back to Undressing the Spirit, my lovelies. Today's mini-sode comes out of a question that Kelly from New Jersey submitted on SpeakPipe. If you happen to have a question or comment for me, please head on over to aryatherapy.com. That's spelled A-R-Y-A, therapy.com, and click on the little gray icon on the right-hand side of your screen. You can record a voicemail, and who knows, I may happen to answer it live on an upcoming broadcast. So let's hear Kelly's question.
Hi, Tamara. It is Kelly from New Jersey. And my question for you is, how do you do it all? How do you do it? Because I am truly fascinated and amazed and inspired by how you do everything you do. I mean, you have so many hats. You have your own practice. You have your own online business. You have your own huge Facebook community, which you provide content multiple times a day, every single day. You're also a teacher. You also host your podcast. You also are a mom and a fiance, and you work on your spirituality, which I find spirituality is like a whole nother job within itself. So I just would love, and honestly, I need to know, my soul needs to know, what do you do? Like, what are your tips and your secrets and your strategies that you can provide us so we can show up powerfully in our life like you do? So that is my question for you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I cannot wait to hear your response. Thank you again.
Kelly, my bright shot of espresso, I love you so much. For those of you who don't know, Kelly is a part of my tribe of trapezoids, and she is just one of the most beautiful human beings and soul beings on this planet, and I really appreciate you, dollface. So to answer your question, I actually have a few ideas about how in the hell I keep all of my many spinning plates in the air, so to speak. And first of all, before we get into the time management and other aspects of my schedule, I think the number one thing that I can say about how to manage this sort of portfolio life is that you have to have a reason. And it's something that you're going to continue to come back to. You know, it's funny that I happen to be recording this episode today as I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to take my daughter, my oldest daughter, my 14-year-old, to a bus that is bound for Orlando, where she's going to be playing at Epcot with her orchestra group. And then coming into my office to see clients for the next big chunk of the day, and then I will be going home. So today is one of those days that I had to ask myself laughingly, what am I doing? But I got to tell you, I wouldn't have it any other way. This is exactly the type of lifestyle that I dreamt of when I decided to leave agency work and pursue my own thing. And so you have to have a reason that keeps you going. There are going to be days, especially as an entrepreneur, where things get hard. Perhaps somebody said something negative about you on social media, or perhaps the phone just isn't ringing like you're hoping that it would. And you may sit back and ask yourself, why am I doing this? So in order to really keep yourself motivating, having that driving passion is going to be so important time and time again. And for me, there are several reasons why I do this. Number one, I really wanted to provide a lifestyle for my family where we were going to be able to put one another first, where I was going to be able to pick my daughters up from school, and I was going to be able to spend time with them and show up for all of their events, kind of like this morning, taking her to that bus. And it was important to me as well that I was going to be able to do therapy and coaching and the way that I knew worked best for my clients. And that means not working for an agency that has to submit to different systems. ARIA, for me, is a sanctuary. It is a lighthouse for people from all walks of life and all worldviews to be able to come and pursue their transpersonal fulfillment, their soul desires, the types of relationships that fulfill them up, being able to connect to the divine. And I just could not do that any other way. And so I think about, as a Patriots fan, don't hate, what makes Tom Brady go back for a 5th Super Bowl ring, right? The man already had 4. Did he need 5? That's up for discussion, right? But he had promised his mother, who was going through cancer treatments, that he was going to go out and get her that 5th ring. And the boy did. So, you want to talk about having haters and having, tough days. My man, Tom Brady, I think certainly has had his fair share. And so that driving reason, the thing that allows us to be a maniac on a mission, is so important. The second thing really adds on to that first one, and that is that you need to be able to weigh every task and opportunity that comes in your direction as an entrepreneur or even a stay-at-home mom against that driving mission. Because here's the thing. The further you go in life and the further that you go in business, opportunities are going to open up for you. People are going to want to collaborate with you. And if you do not stay very, very clear about your driving mission, it is so easy for life to carry you out. It's like getting swept out to sea. And before you know it, your schedule is running you instead of you running your schedule. And so whether it is, podcast collaborations or people who want to sublease from me, I'm very cautious, not in an overly, how do I want to say this? Not in an overly hesitant way, but I'm so very clear on my driving mission that I'm actually able to make these decisions pretty quickly. I might just do a quick scan of my energy and I will, speak with this person, whoever it is that's coming in to talk to me, about my core values and see if we are aligned. If not, it's a quick no. Many of you have seen that article circulating around social media. I love it. If it's not a hell yes, then it should be a hell no. Some people will say, if it's not a fuck yes, it should be a fuck no. You could be kind and polite with it, but the main point is that for you internally, you have to be very, very clear. And so it's kind of like holding up a piece of, crystal to the sunlight. Is this in alignment with me? Yeah? Can I see myself here? Then absolutely, let's talk. If not, let it go, let it go. Number 3, it's really, really important that we stay adaptable. What do I mean by that? Well, you see, my doll, the priorities that you probably had in your early 20s are not going to be the same priorities that you have in your late 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, so on. And I see business owners, but even moms at home, really get themselves stuck when they're not able to grow and be flexible. And so for me, what that looked like as a stay-at-home mom before I went back to grad school, girl, Pinterest wasn't even around then, but I was just in my prime. I was happier than a pig in mud, spending my days cooking and cleaning and setting up dinner parties and going on mommy play dates. I threw myself into that role. But when it became time to go back to grad school, there just weren't enough hours in the day to maintain that standard of living in the home where there's not a single dust bunny to be found. And so my priorities shifted. Now, we certainly do not live in filth because this mama is very type A. However, the areas of the house that I cared about and how things got done did absolutely shift, so to speak. And so for me now, I do still care about the main areas that, if you stopped over for coffee, I would probably care about, I would want you to see a clean living room and a clean kitchen. But is it probably, disinfected on the daily? Not so much. And now my girls are getting a little bit older as well. So for me, I might walk by and just close the door to their bedroom and pretend I did not see that dirty laundry on the floor or that empty Coke can. If they have a sleepover, that's a different story. Mommy makes them clean up that room before anybody else is allowed in there. And so be very, very adaptable. Kids may come into your life. Loved ones may come into your life. You might have a new romantic partner. And so your priorities and your schedule is going to shift. And I think that's important as well. I kind of adapted a mantra of what's good enough, not to let you slack off, but so that you can really enjoy the whole reason why you might choose to live a portfolio lifestyle. I hope that makes sense. Number 4, this is huge for me. And it's going to sound cliche, but mindfulness and present focus. As therapists, we have this saying, new client, new mind. Every 45 minutes, we switch gears. Every 45 minutes, my session is over. I get up, I use the restroom, I take a few deep breaths, I recenter in myself, and I prepare for the next client. And so no matter what type of schedule you have, I think it's really important to find sacred pauses in your day. Perhaps after you hang up the phone on a discovery call, you take a few deep breaths and you recenter. Perhaps before you get out of the car, you take a quick little body sweep. If you are involved in energy healing, this is a beautiful time to send yourself a little self-Reiki or self-love or compassion. I just can't overstate that enough. Mindfulness, it really helps keep the overwhelm at bay. So for example, right now I am podcasting and I'm as much as possible attempting not to think about a lecture that I may be prepping for the University of West Florida, or the fact that I'm going to have to pick up my daughter from school, or what clients I'm going to see later on. Right now, I am just focused on talking to Kelly and speaking to her from my heart about how we live a truly fulfilled life, no matter how busy it gets. So mindfulness and present focus has been really, really helpful. It's kind of like the lubrication on the well-oiled machine. It's what's able to help keep me going throughout the day. Number 5 is boundaries. It's not a sexy topic, but I'll tell you, it gets you sexy results. This is not something that I was overly great at, especially coming out of a conservative Christian worldview. Somehow I internalized the message that if somebody asks something of you, you need to be available to give it to them at all hours of the day. And oh, girl, that was a fast way to burn out and resentment, which really does not do anybody any good. And so over the last few years, I have learned to put systems in place, things like automatic email responders that let clients know, hey, thank you for your inquiry. I really appreciate you. However, I only respond to emails during this certain hours of the day, and I will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. If it's somebody inquiring about a business inquiry, such as, maybe they want me on their podcast, etc., that may take me a little bit longer to respond to. And I have to, here's the key, stick to my own boundaries. So just because I tell clients that I'm not going to respond to them, I have absolutely been guilty of, first thing in the morning, grabbing my phone, scrolling through my email and sending off a response. Is there anything wrong with that? No, not necessarily. But if that continues throughout time, then I am setting myself up for failure. We really teach people how to treat us. And the bottom line for me as a people pleaser, recovering people pleaser, was learning that it is most loving to maintain those boundaries so that I do not develop resentment and I'm able to stay very present focused and in a space of love and service with them. So be careful about your boundaries. Be thinking about, when do I want to be available for people? How do I want to be available for people? Because this also comes into money. A lot of coaches and healers and counselors, we are really, really bad at forgetting, or I should say at remembering that, girl, you got bills to pay. Your love, care, and concern are absolutely free, but your overhead, your rent, your expertise, your student loans, those are not. And so there's a million ways, my dear, that you can give back, and it doesn't always have to be monetarily wise. And so I would encourage you to consider how much do you need to make, and be clear about those boundaries as well. Again, from a space of love. The sixth recommendation that I have, and this is probably the one that everyone is expecting me to speak to, is time management. Absolutely. Now, it comes easier to some of us than others. I am definitely a J on the Myers-Briggs. I was raised on the 6 Ps, which for those of you who weren't military brats, means prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And so it was key for me to set up a schedule in place and systems in place and to be able to stick to them. And here's the thing. You don't have to go balls to the wall with it, but I tell you what, a little structure does everybody good. Even if you're a bohemian gypsy goddess, just knowing where and when you're supposed to be places, maybe using Google Calendar or Calendly or Acuity, can be uber helpful. Set some reminders on your phone. And I'll give you my little secret. I tend to use what I call a Tetris schedule. What does that mean? Well, way back in the day, those of us dinosaurs used to play this video game called Tetris, where different colored and different shaped boxes, if you will, would fall from the sky at the top of your screen, and you had to fit them together. For me, that's how I look at my schedule. As you mentioned in your question, I have a lot of different roles that I play, right? I've got my Facebook communities. I have several of them. I have my teaching. I have this podcasting thing. I have my counseling practice, and I have my coaching, spiritually woo practice as well. And all of those go into my schedule in different chunked blocks. And I am so type A that I actually color code those because it makes me happy. And so my typical day looks like getting up around 5:20 a.m. and spending, the first few minutes just adjusting to my day, getting in the shower, probably scrolling through social media like we all do, and then jumping online for about 20 minutes while I'll have some good chanting music, meditation music in my head, and I'll center in to spirit and ask the universe how we're going to play today. And I'll log into my tribe of trapezoids, and that's where I'll post the daily oracle card. Now, so I'll spend about 15, 20 minutes, approving new member requests and maybe talking to a few women who may have tagged me in a post, etc. And then I will get ready and get my kids up and off to school, and I arrive to work, and I'm the type that needs to get here again early and settle in for the day. I light my candles, I light my incense, I spend a little more time in meditation, and then I have my client block. And so I will typically see clients anywhere from 8 to 1 or 9 to 1 before I go home to get the munchkin. So that's my client block. Here's the beautiful thing about a Tetris schedule is that I can shift that entire block as need be. And so I can rest and not get anxious about it because I know that those tasks are going to get done. The whole block can shift around to a different position. So this week with the end of the year activities with the kids' school, both my girls had award ceremonies in the morning, which is so difficult for the vast majority of the working community, right? But fortunately for me, being an entrepreneur, I was able to contact my clients and say, hey, something came up. Can we shift your session to the afternoon? And sure enough, because I work with amazing people, we were able to slide that entire Tetris block to the afternoon. And so on that day, I had my family block in the morning and my client block in the afternoon. And then I always put in a self-care block. And that, my dear, is tip number 7. In order to keep this whole thing going, you got to take care of you first. And what does that look like for you? You know, a lot of women that I have spoken to really seem to assume that when coaches or healers talk about self-care, that we're talking about spending a hell of a lot of money going out and getting, the new coach bag or purse and getting that pedicure done and massage. And while that is all wonderful, and I certainly would encourage you to put that on your schedule if you can afford it and you've got the time to do so, I am also absolutely just talking about walking outside and taking a few deep breaths, or maybe taking a bath and soaking in Epsom salts. That's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite things to do is at the end of the day, Tamara goes into her bathroom and uses all sorts of fun, froofy bath elements. And I got my candles, sometimes my Kindle. I will play some music, whatever it is that makes Tams feel juicy and delicious. And that's where I purge for, my day. And I release everything off of me. And as I mentioned before, I also make sure to show up to my office early and I spend some time bullet journaling. My personal favorite thing to do every day in my journal is to keep a running list of things that I'm celebrating and things that I am releasing and my goals. Literally takes me 5 minutes, but it's a beautiful connection between me, my own psyche and emotions, and the divine. And so self-care, 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 whatever that looks like for you. That means getting out with friends, taking that yoga class. Do not put that off because nothing is worse than a burnt out coach or healer or mama. All you mama bears out there, please put your oxygen mask on first before applying it to your child. Thank you. The last tip that I have for you, Kelly dear, and everyone else listening is delegate. Delegate. The busier I get, the more I delegate to other people. And hey, you don't have to straight out of the gate hire a VA, a virtual assistant. But perhaps the things that do not light your soul up, for example, editing this podcast. I have an amazing audio Adonis named Pete Bailey, who's in the UK and takes care of that. So I continue to sound professional and sexy without having to spend hours pulling my hair out, trying to figure out how to edit out all of the ridiculousness. So that's one of my favorite gifts to myself. I also hire out accounting and bookkeeping at times. I've also learned to delegate more to my children and to my boyfriend, things around the house. You don't have to do everything yourself. And so absolutely anything that does not require your personal touch, let it go, because your clients and your friends and your lovers will thank you that they still have an energetic espresso that is Kelly or whoever else is listening to this right now. I hope that was helpful, Kelly. That's pretty much how I keep my empire running. It's a lot of moving parts, and most days things go really, really well. But on the days that things start to unravel and I may even fall flat on my face, and there are those days where somehow I've accidentally double booked myself or I have sent out the wrong email. On those days, girlfriend, all I can say is maybe some Baileys in that coffee at the end of the day and some self-care. Again, a little bit of compassion and humor. All right. I love you, Dollface. Thank you for the awesome question. And I will catch you all on the flip side. Until next time, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Undressing the Spirit podcast. I pray you found some inspiration and titillation today. As always, I am forever grateful for 5-star reviews, comments, and subscriptions on iTunes and anywhere else you may be listening to this broadcast. Please note the information provided is not meant to convey professional, psychological, or medical advice. If you could use such services, I highly recommend seeking them out from someone you trust. To get in touch with me personally, please check out ariatherapy.com or talesfromatrapezoid.com. Until next time, everyone.